We are gathered here today across the streaming platforms of your choice, 1 week after a historic election landslide victory for Donald Trump, to bid farewell to the hopes, vibes, and joy of the Democrat Party. Rest in peace.
In the swing state of Pennsylvania, NBC News now projects that presidential contest has been won by Donald Trump. It presents an insurmountable future here for Kamala Harris and for the Democratic ticket. Let's watch as Trump takes the stage in Palm Beach, Florida.
We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy?
Boy, it's going to be a real tough speech for her.
My condolences to the sanity of our friends at MSNBC and across liberal media. 1 week later, and I'm sure it still stings. But you can rebuild your party if, and it's a big if, you're willing to look within, willing to look in the mirror, hell, willing to walk around this great place called Earth and observe that the reality you thought you were living in was a delusion. Now, look, I don't want to rub salt into the wound here. I really don't. I hope for unity for the American people. I hope for an honest and civil dialogue between our two sides of the aisle. Maybe not a consensus, but at least a conversation. And that's why I've invited back our friend, Michael Hardaway, former Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, Communication Director. It's great to have you. I appreciate you, taking one for the team and having this discussion. I feel like it's going to be so insightful. So again, I really thank you for being here.
Let me just point out that most people would have avoided this conversation, but I certainly owe you this based on our last conversation. So looking forward to it.
So listen, I really don't want to be a sore winner. I really don't. But I do want to ask you from your perspective, right? Yeah. What do you think went wrong?
So there are several things. The first is I think she couldn't answer basic questions correctly, which I don't really understand. I think she had a record to sell. So, for instance, she should have won Pennsylvania. And the reason she should have won it is because thousands of fracking jobs that exist today didn't exist before this administration took office, right? You got historic highs of domestic oil production under this administration, more than we've ever had in this country. And she couldn't sell that basic thing. And I think there are identical accomplishments that she could have sold. For whatever reason, she just couldn't give clean answers. I can't quite understand it, to be honest with you. I mean, and frankly, the beating was so bad, it just trickled down ticket, because I think most of us had Democrats at least winning the House, even if we lost the Senate. And obviously that didn't happen. Obviously across state houses, a similar situation. And so I think it really just started at the top and just sort of trickled down. Sadly.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So question for you. Do you think if they would have stuck with Joe Biden, do you think that he would have performed better? Do you think he could have won?
I do think he would have performed better. If you remember, we talked about this before. I didn't think he should have dropped out, because I think at a foundational level, look, he's not the guy that he was 10 years ago. I think that's obvious to everyone. But I will say that I don't think he would have gotten swept in the battleground states. I think he probably could have won Pennsylvania. At minimum, he still has strong support among working class people of all races, and certainly with working class men. And that's something we could have used. I mean, if you look at her exit polling, what's interesting is she kind of did worse with every single demographic. And that all accumulated into what you saw. But it's not like she just won one or lost one, and that was the reason why. She kind of actually did worse across the board. And I don't think Joe would have done that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a toss-up. I also think, I know that you probably don't agree, but I do believe that the Democrat Party was competing against somebody who is an excellent candidate and an excellent leader, and that's Donald Trump. He just has a support base that's unlike any other we've ever seen in American politics.
I'm going to give you some credit. I don't agree with any of that, but I will say he is an excellent master of the media, and he, I think better than probably anyone we've ever seen at that level, understands how to shape the media and use them for what he wants, to get all the free earned media that he wants. I think he has a real innate understanding of how to do that. And so I will give him credit for that.
He certainly does. And I think late in the campaign, the visit to McDonald's, also the ride in the garbage truck. I mean, those were moments, whether you agreed with them or not, those were moments that captured the hearts of the American people, because it's hard to look at Donald Trump riding around in the garbage truck. It's hard not to laugh at that. It's hard not to feel the endearment of that, whether you like the man or not. I think this big boogeyman that the Democrat Party was trying to create of Donald Trump, I think those moments really helped cut through a lot of that narrative. And I think that the liberal media actually did a giant disservice to their own candidate. But you brought up Kamala being unable to answer basic questions, whether she doesn't understand them, whether she didn't know how to answer them. I don't know. That's only up for Kamala to give us the truth behind. But, Carville really skewered her, and also maybe even the ladies of The View, for one question that she was asked that he feels really ended her campaign then and there. I want to listen to what he had to say about that moment.
And told Adam DeGurney, we didn't even get a chance to kick the tires. We just said, you're buying the car and you have no choice. And of course, we bought the car. And I think if this campaign is reducible to one moment, we're in a 65% wrong track country. The country wants something different. And she's asked, as so often the case in a friendly audience on The View, how would you be different than Biden? It's the one question that you exist to answer. All right? That is it. That's the money question. That's the one you want. That's the one that everybody wants to know the answer to. And you freeze. You literally freeze and say, well, I can't think of anything. And once you get in it, so we said 65% want something different. We are just not going to give in to them, but maybe the odiousness of Trump combined with the Dobbs decision, we can overcome it. Well, we didn't overcome it. But when we go back and history unearths this, it's going to be right there on The View. And I think her name was Sunny Houston or whatever, asked the question. And that's the most devastating answer you could imagine.
Do you agree with that assessment?
I do. Actually, I think, Carville has said some incredibly important things over the last 6 months that if the party would have listened to him, we may not be in this position. I do agree. I think the answer was very easy on The View. I think she could have answered it without, skewering or attacking the president. That's a very easy thing to do. I don't know why she was not able to do it. I do think that, something else Carville said that, he got attacked for is our party has to be honest with itself about its relationship with men and the lack thereof and why that is the case. And it is my hope that the beating we took last week will facilitate that honest conversation. I'm not optimistic, but we have to have it. And we can't pretend as though we don't really understand why men seem to be abandoning our party. I think the answer is clear. We just have to be honest with ourselves.
All right. Well, I'm interested in your assessment of that. I'll give you mine, just as somebody who's a conservative and has seen a lot of men, particularly young men, flock to the Republican Party. It's because it feels like the Democrat Party has gone so woke, and that's become the identity of the Democrat Party. It used to be like the working class. It used to be the Union Party. It used to be really blue collar, and that's what the Democrat Party was. And then it went so woke and so tilted to the woke side that men felt like they didn't recognize it. And it's the constant demonization of masculinity over and over and over again. And, I understand that to some men, the abortion issue might be important, but when that is the primary message of the Democrat campaign and the Kamala campaign is just abortion, 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 there's a lot of men out there that are like, I might feel like I'm a pro-choice man, but I also just want to be able to afford eggs, and this campaign is not giving me any answers about how I'm supposed to do that. So what is your brutally honest assessment of why the Democrat Party is hemorrhaging men, particularly young men?
Very good framing there, my friend. Very good framing. Look, I think there are three things that we have to consider. The first is we should have gone heavily on the economic message. That is what we should have done, and that is our only way back out of the woods, which is to focus on pocketbook issues, on jobs, on sky-high prices, on all these things. That's one. But also, look, I think our society at large is in this place where we demonize masculinity in a way that's not reasonable, in a way that it is not smart. And I think particularly with younger men in their 20s who have flocked to YouTube creators, they're looking for answers. They're looking for a tribe that's not attacking them for being men and not saying to them that whatever you do is toxic just because you're a guy. I don't think that's reasonable. And I think our society at large has to get out of that business because it's gone too far. But here's the other thing. We didn't sell men on anything. You can't just say, you should vote for us because it's the right thing to do, or you should vote for us because you have a mom. We have to say, you should vote for us because we're going to do this thing for you, right? So what are the things that are important to men? You have obviously the economic things we talked about. I don't know, maybe issues like alimony and no-fault divorce and all these other things that men seem to care about. Maybe you should sell them on that. And so this is the issue, Tommy, with some of the groups that we didn't do well with, be it white men, be it Hispanic men, be it men overall, be it even suburban white women. We have to say, vote for me for this reason because I'm going to do this for you. We can't say, vote for me because it's the right thing to do, or vote for me because you're related to someone that this issue may affect. It's just a bad sell.
It is. And also beating men over the head that they must vote for the woman. If they don't vote for the woman, then they're sexist. I mean, I think that was horrible messaging. I think that the Obamas really put a big dent in what would have been, objectively speaking, a great legacy for the Obamas. I think that they marred it a little bit, not only by supporting Kamala, but by those late campaign speeches about, we're not going to be a victim of your rage. I think that was, in essence, what Michelle Obama said.
Let's talk about that. I think, look, at a foundational level, this is my personal opinion, I don't think Barack wanted to be involved at this point in his life in politics and in this campaign. And I think that the fact that he got in so late really personifies that. I don't really think he wanted to be involved. And frankly, I don't think he had to be involved given everything he's done for the party. But nonetheless, he was pulled into this situation. I don't think that his words there were the best, but that wasn't the issue, Tommy. The issue is the party's relationship with Black men. The issue is the party's relationship with men. It wasn't about one particular person, not even her. It wasn't that. It was the party's relationship and where it's going to go. It is perfectly fine to advocate for women, and we should, but we should also advocate for men and the things they care about. And that is okay. But for whatever reason, I think in the current society, that doesn't seem to be the thinking of some people. And so I think for both parties, and Trump was really able to seize this in terms of men feeling disaffected and men feeling as though they don't have anywhere to go. He was able to seize that. Now, the question is, what happens in 2026 and 2028 on this? Because we can't be in a situation where we say, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should vote for us because we want you to, or because it's the right thing to do. Because look, shaming has never convinced anyone to do anything. And so why would that work in politics?
Yeah, I mean, I think that your party would be smart to listen to you on that point. Since this devastating loss, I appreciate that you are actually able to take a look at your party, as I did, honestly, after the 2022 midterms. I took a look at my party and the red wave that never came, and I said, y'all got to get better on your abortion messaging because we're going to keep losing elections if we don't. And my party adapted. I also said, hey, our party is going to fail if we don't learn how to do early voting and mail-in voting and ballot harvesting. And guess what? The RNC stepped up and they did just that. So I think that it's always productive to look at your party, and I hope that yours does that. Just for the sake of the country, because we still have a lot of Democrats in this country. I'd like to see that party get more sane. Maybe we could actually get something done at a congressional level. That would be wonderful.
You know what else? You know what else is the problem, Tommy? Is like Sun Tzu said, never fight the last war. And I think that was the other part of this for us, which is they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on television ads in 2024. Now, who watches TV, right? Like the average cable news viewer is 70 years old. 7-0. You're not reaching the majority of the populace, certainly the people that you need to actually reach, if you're wasting hundreds of millions of dollars on TV ads. But that's what was done here. And so as we look forward, the Republicans also have this interesting situation where they have an ecosystem online, and obviously like with Twitter and Fox News and all those things, but also these YouTube channels that have millions of viewers, and they're able to put their candidates on there and really humanize people in a real way. And I think on our side, we have to think about the way that we communicate with voters. It can't just be these TV ads. because no one watches TV except for 17% of us or whatever it may be. And so I think we have to get real about the power of YouTube, about the power of TikTok, about the power of people wanting to know who their electeds are, and the idea that you can't just use talking points to influence someone. Like I saw JD Vance went on the Tim Dillon show, and I don't really think much of JD Vance, but I'll say I watched that interview and I said, oh, he seems like a human being. Mm-hmm. And I think most voters, that's all they're looking for, is a human being. And so I think for our side, we have to be better about communicating with voters in a meaningful way, and going to where voters are, not going to where we think they should be going. And really, and here's the other thing, we do the work, Tommy. Like, we are the people who fight for unions. Through the PRO Act, we protected the pensions of many union workers, but obviously the Teamsters and many members of that didn't support us. I think in part because people don't know what we've actually done for them. And so we are doing the work. We don't communicate it effectively. And so at the top of our list has to be a situation where we are better communicating to people how we impact their lives. We have to be in that situation. We can't be nagging people. Yeah. We can't be shaming people. We can't be attacking people, and we can't be disregarding them. You know, I mean, yeah. I think that I have many clients who are professional athletes, and I talked to all of them about this, and their perspective was interesting, because what I've realized is, after talking to them, that a lot of them, and I think a lot of Americans, they know that Donald Trump is a crook, but it doesn't matter because they think all politicians are crooks. But we on our side say Donald Trump is a fascist, which, by the way, is a term that no one understands. So right. I don't know why we use it. But also we'd say Donald Trump did all these things. He's a bad guy. Yeah, but a lot of people think all politicians are bad guys. So that's not an effective way to message to someone. And so I just hope that on our side, we can pivot back to sanity, because I agree with you. As a country, we need two strong parties that can actually work together to get stuff done. You got a $35 trillion debt. You've got a world in chaos in Lebanon and the Sudan, and half the world is in chaos. Yeah. And we have to work together in a bipartisan way to address those issues if we're going to come out of that wilderness.
No, I agree. I also think that post-election, some of the folks that are on liberal media, and I think they do it for the shock value, but the Joy Reids of the world and the ladies of the View, I don't think they're helpful to your party, Michael, and I think that you guys would do well to maybe tell them to shut up a little bit, because when they're saying, I mean,
Tommy, come on.
Well, listen, when they're sitting there saying black men must be misogynistic, Latino men must be racist and misogynistic, to your point, I don't think that's working well. And then you've got Joy Reid saying, oh, white women, they're to blame. Sonny Hostin saying uneducated white women are the problem. That's not going to be helpful for your party.
I got an idea, and I've said this to many people over the past week in my party. Let's start taking accountability and stop pointing fingers. How about we do that? How about we say we failed because we failed to do these things, instead of getting mad at certain groups because they didn't do what we think they should do. Like, listen, if you have a store, right, and you sell ice cream, you don't shame the customer for not wanting to buy your ice cream.
Right.
You don't attack the customer for not wanting to buy your ice cream. You say, my ice cream sucks. I need to do better. And that's where we have to be.
Yeah. Well, Joe Biden loves ice cream. But you know what else I'm going to tell you is not going to help your case? Not you as a person, you as in, a surrogate for your party. It's not going to help the Democrat Party, some of the meltdowns that we're seeing post-election. And if you want to win over men, the liberal white women in your party or on your social media that are advocating for your party, they're not helping your cause, because now they're so angry that the American people chose Donald Trump that they're choosing to shave their heads. They're screaming at the sky. They don't want to, they're having an abstinence pledge. They're not going to be sexually active for the next 4 years. They're right? I mean, they're willing, they're able to do whatever. But, when you're losing with men and you've got women shaving their heads on TikTok because Kamala lost, I mean, you've got to look at this too and be like, damn, this isn't helping. I'm not sure why they think this is effective, or they just do it for likes and views, or they just want to look uglier, but it's not helping your case with men.
Tommy, I think most people on social media just do stuff for attention. I don't know why they're doing those things. Honestly, I don't really use social media that much, so I don't know why they're doing it. But let me just say this. For everyone, we have to get out of the business of emotional reactions, right? If we're going to move forward as a country and deal with all these massive issues we have on our plate that we have to deal with together, we have to be rational about where we are and how things work. And the reality of the situation is, I don't like Donald Trump or many of the things that he's done, but the reality is that, if we're Americans, we have to say, are we going to work together to deal with the things we have to deal with? I worked with the Trump administration on criminal justice reform several years ago. And so I think there's always a way to be sane and do things for the betterment of the country. The question is, who are you putting first, yourself or the country? I'm putting the country first. And I think, and I hope that a lot more people also think that way.
That would be nice. You're right, though. A lot of these people on social media just primarily do this for attention. It's a little much to shave your head because you lost an election, but I also would argue that it's a little much that, your party maybe advocates for minors to cut off body parts because they have gender confusion. But that's a whole nother thing. That's a woke side of this. I'm wondering from your perspective, what's next for Kamala? I think she's done, right? I think
Also,
Kamala—
by the way, since you use a W word, let me just clear this up. You guys have completely destroyed that word because it doesn't mean what it currently means. What it used to mean is that it started in the Black community and it was people who understood when bullshit was going on, when bad things were happening. And then was in some way commandeered by people to characterize all these crazy things that people are doing with purple hair, and they have all these crazy ideas. And it doesn't mean that. But that being said, we are where we are. So to answer your question, I don't know where she goes going forward, right? We have to, again—
Would you guys— okay, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think you guys should run her again in 2028 and try out this experiment?
You already know the answer to that. No, absolutely not. Okay, you know what 2028 looks like? And by the way, you should be fearful, but also hopeful, because Wes Moore will be president of the United States. And he really embodies everything that's great about us as a country, and also everything that my party should be striving for. And so I think he's our guy. I don't think she would be running again. It's also the fact that she didn't have to go through a primary here. When she did go through a primary last time, she couldn't make it through. And so I think as it relates to her in the White House, I don't really see that happening. It might, but I just don't see it. I think Wes Moore is our guy in 4 years.
Well, listen, I will give you this. You have a much better bench in 2028 to choose from. There's several folks that I don't agree with politically, but I think are good messengers and good campaigners, Shapiro being one. I'm sure Gavin Newsom, he's already gearing up because Gavin is, he's always a snake in the grass trying to do something. But, there are some folks in your party that have some big plans for Kamala, some more unearned promotions. There was a gentleman that believes that Joe should step down now and make Kamala president. Okay, that's one wild one. Okay, that's a little wild. But then there's also others that believe that she should be nominated for a Supreme Court position. She should sit on the bench. But Bernie Sanders,
No.
I hate to say he's a voice of reason, but Bernie Sanders was asked this question and this was his response. I want to play it for you.
Some Democrats behind the scenes quietly talking about the possibility, should Justice Sotomayor step down, to allow President Biden to appoint someone who's younger. She's only 70 years old. Is that something that you would support? Do you think she should step down?
No, I don't.
Have you heard any talk of this?
A little bit, yes. I don't think it's a sensible approach.
And you don't think it's a sensible approach?
Correct.
Unlikely voice of reason there. Bernie's not for it, though.
Your favorite guy, Bernie Sanders. Listen, this is insane. If you're a Democrat who can hear the sound of my voice, we have to get out of this business. The participation trophies, the I deserve this for this. Let's just stop, all right? Politics is war. You either win the war or you lose the war, right? If you lose the war, you have to ask yourself why I lost the war instead of saying, I know that I lost, but I deserve some sort of consolation prize. I don't believe in those things. I believe in a meritocracy, right? So again, and this as a country, let's have this conversation. All of us, in some way, I think there were people who voted for Trump for nothing else other than they're sick of the idea of we're in an era where a consolation prize or participation trophy is what everyone should get. I don't believe in any of those things. And we as a country have to get out of this business. No one deserves anything, be it a Supreme Court seat, be it to be in the White House for 3 months. That's absurd. So again, if we're going to come together as a country, let's focus on moving forward in a sane and a reasonable way that focuses on meritocracy and focuses on sanity instead of like disparagement, instead of shaming, instead of finger pointing. Let's just move forward and say, look, the winner takes all. It's just the way that it is.
Listen, you sound pretty sane and reasonable to me. In fact, it sounds to me like you might actually be more conservative than you let on. But I will never accuse you of that. But I think your party would do well to listen to folks like you. So I think that you've got a lot of business in the next couple of years because your party desperately needs your voice of reason, which I disagree with a lot of the policy perspectives, but I agree with your overall message. And you know what? What a unifying thing. I always appreciate you taking the time. I hope your party listens to you.
Buy me some ice cream.
Yes. Well, there you go. Well, Joe's eating it all, but I appreciate your time. And I want to have this conversation as we move through the next couple of years, and we'll see if your party takes your advice. And I sincerely hope they do, Michael. Thank you so much for being here.
Fingers crossed. Thank you, Tomi.
All right, folks. Kamala's losing campaign burned through over $1 billion, millions wasted on celebrities and sex podcasts. Aren't you glad you didn't elect her to manage America's pocketbook? Well, it's time for final thoughts. Kamala lost for many reasons. For one, she couldn't relate to, understand, or acknowledge the struggles of the American people, struggles created primarily thanks to her administration. But now that her $1 billion campaign can't pay its bills and is reportedly defaulting on payments to vendors, now she may finally know how Americans feel at the grocery store or the gas pump. Well, sort of. American families are going broke paying for everyday essentials and necessary bills. Kamala's Vibe campaign went broke paying for fame, glitz, and glamour, and it still lost. The numbers really are shocking, though. Remember this Oprah town hall?
And I know lots of people are feeling it because it actually is hope and joy rising. And there's been a, can you feel it? You can feel it. You can feel it. You can feel it. We can feel it. We can feel it. You can feel it. You can feel it.
Nope, didn't feel it. Oh, but it did cost the Kamala campaign $1 million. I'm sure Oprah and her production company needed the money. After all, like Kamala, Oprah's a middle-class gal. She told us Trump was an existential threat to human life forms, and yet she charged Kamala to boost her campaign. Oof. I guess saving the human race has a price tag for Oprah, and it's around $1 million. Now, Oprah is denying she personally got paid a dime, but that production did not come for free. Can you imagine how many illegal aliens we could deport with $1 million? How many homeless veterans we could get off the streets? How many hurricane victims we could get back on their feet? Oh, and speaking of that, actually, when folks were literally drowning in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Helene, do you know where Kamala was? Recording a raunchy sex podcast with Alex Cooper in a replica set that reportedly cost 6 figures.
I'm curious, you don't do too many long form interviews. What made you want to do Call Her Daddy today?
Well, I think you and your listeners have really got this thing right, which is one of the best ways to communicate with people is to be real, and to talk about the things that people really care about. What I love about what you do is that your voice in your show is really about your listeners. And I think especially now, this is a moment in the country and in life where people really want to know they're seen and heard and that they're part of a community, that they're not out there alone. And so I'm really glad to be with you.
Kamala's campaign is entitled to drop, and they were entitled to drop whatever they wanted on that kind of crap, but the tone deafness really is next level. People were literally drowning and are still left with nothing in the aftermath of that hurricane. And while all that was going down, Kamala's team was paying for a replica set for a sex podcast. I mean, if the left is still wondering how Kamala lost, the examples are literally limitless. The good news is Donald Trump is such a nice guy. He's even offered to help Kamala with her bills. What a guy. Those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in live tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Catch full episodes of this show on Fox Nation whenever you want. Please also like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.